of vibrant health, wellness, and energy.
Hello, it's Rapid Regeneration. I'm David Escamilla. I'm not a doctor or medical professional. I'm not making any medical claims or claims about diseases. I am just somebody who is committed to helping you and who has figured out so many of the answers to solve these problems. I know how to solve problems naturally, and I've been there. If you're suffering, if you're not where you want to be, if you're lacking in energy, if you don't feel good, I have been there and felt absolutely horrible. I was able to turn my life around and basically completely recover. I was really sick for 4 years. I had horrible brain fog. I poisoned myself accidentally with pharmaceutical products, and I basically had horrible side effects and just had exhaustion and cognitive impairment for 4 years. When I found out the powers of this information, I was so desperate that I really went for it. I really committed, and I did body cleansing. I did supplements. I slowly transitioned into eating healthier, and then I really kept it up. And once I got into a good rhythm, I really kept it up. But here's what I didn't know. I didn't know how to cheat when I was having intense cravings for junk foods. I was really ineffective. I did not know how to cheat. And as a result, it took me 3.5 years to completely recover and heal myself. And I think that it took much longer than it needed to, because the body is powerful, and its own self-healing process is so powerful. If you allow that to activate, and if you give it what it needs, if you stay out of its way, then you can be where you want to be in terms of reaching your health goals. So the value that I will bring to you is to help you get there faster, more effectively than it did for me. So I didn't know how to cheat, and I would do things like I would eat like corn chips. Oh God, corn chips. Bread or rice or like beans or like a tortilla. And there was things I ate, pizza. There were things I ate like as a cheat meal, especially the chips, the corn chips. That really killed me. And it really held me back, because the point of this section is it's going to be a bunch of different foods you can use, which if you're absolutely going to have a cheat meal, if you can't resist that craving, then you can eat these foods and it will basically satisfy that craving, but it's not going to have all the acidic, toxic blowback that other foods would have. So, and you have to understand, my appetite back in 2015, when I was starting my journey, it was so voracious. So I know some gurus out there are going to say, don't cheat, and don't eat unhealthy foods, and you need to stick it in there and just commit. Look, there was no way that was going to happen. When I got started, my appetite was so crazy, and I was so hooked on junk foods. And even 2 years later, after I was on healthier lifestyle, I was still eating these corn chips all the time. I couldn't resist this craving. And so basically, if you can, if you're in that scenario, yes, you should ideally power through and deny that craving, because once you turn it over control, and you're probably in this is probably an emotional decision. You're eating emotionally, you're seeking out a comfort meal, preparing those foods, or going to pick them up. And, it puts you in this weird emotional state where you get kind of taken over. You get hijacked. And always pay attention to your emotions when this is happening. But yeah, I mean, you typically don't feel good. I mean, after you do it, and then it takes several hours to digest, it takes a couple days to completely eliminate, and then you might feel the effects for several days or even weeks. So, yeah, I mean, it's rarely worth it, and you should deny the craving if you can, but I know there's going to be times when you can't. And, here's the other thing, is that if you suppress that craving over and over, then you can get too ambitious as well. I've seen this so many times with myself, with others, and yeah, I mean, it might not make the monster go away, right, if you just keep denying it. And sometimes that monster gets bigger and bigger and more entitled and comes back with a vengeance. And so then the cravings can get so intense that somebody could end up going crazy, and they eat something so extreme and excessive, and it really would have been better to kind of cut back and eat something to satisfy that, like more moderate, a couple days before, and then just got back on the train and kept momentum. So before I list out these different foods that I've discovered over 7+ years of doing this, I'm just gonna, just to make this so everyone understands what I'm saying, I don't want you to think I'm telling you, hey, just eat cheat meals all the time and indulge yourself. And that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, it's the nuclear option. So there's two scenarios. Okay, scenario number one, right, is Susie. She starts feeling ratted out. She's been eating so healthy, all this healthy food, a lot of fruit, and she feels serious cravings coming on. She feels like her self-discipline is reaching its limits, and she makes a meal. She eats cooked vegetables. She eats like veggie burger, meat, and rice. And she eats that, and she feels lousy, right, for a few days. But a few days later, she's more or less back to normal, and she didn't lose too much momentum, right? And she goes a couple more weeks, right? But then she feels the cravings coming on again, and she does the same thing. She strategically compromises and says, all right, I'll have a cheat meal. But this time, she's a bit smarter, right? She eats a veggie burger that's made from hemp seeds instead of from beans. And instead of using real starchy rice, she uses broccoli rice. And she still feels satisfied afterwards. But her recovery time is much quicker, and her body begins detoxing again much, much quicker. And she basically maintains momentum forwards. So that's scenario one. Now, scenario number two. Okay, let's look at Johnny on the other hand. So Johnny's in the same boat, right? He's been pursuing a very healthy diet. He's been eating a lot of fruits, a lot of raw foods, and he's getting intense cravings. But Johnny is trying to be a hero, and he just pushes on. He's saying mind over matter, but the cravings intensify. So basically, he staves them off for another couple days, but then finally the cravings just come back and just completely dominate. And when this happens, it's like a switch gets flipped, and Johnny hits the abort button of the mission, and basically the pin comes out of the grenade. And so Johnny basically gets possessed by this craving and gives over to it. And basically this could be a few different things, right? He goes to the drive-thru of a fast food restaurant. He goes to a comfort food restaurant to pick up a meal. He goes to the grocery store or a corner store to get something from the processed food section or the frozen aisle. And Johnny takes it home and and digs in, and it's 1 hour of pure bliss. But by the end of it, he feels absolutely horrible, and his body starts to punish him. So it takes several days before Johnny starts feeling, kind of normal again. So it's like kind of like a food hangover. And even after that, something's still not quite right, and it's taking a long time to get rid of all the chemicals, and acidic residue that are from these junk foods. Then the cravings come back with a vengeance, right? Let's say a week later, the body has had a taste of these chemicals and these addictive chemicals that are in these junk foods. And his body doesn't just want cooked comfort foods. It wants the straight dope. So a week later, Johnny relapses again and he's back to his old haunts. Now this actually begins a vicious cycle, and it goes on for the next couple months. And Johnny repeats the same behavior. And by the time he finally gets a grip and finally cuts it out, it's been 10, 12 weeks. He's lost a ton of momentum. He's acidified his body numerous times. And he's now so much further from his health goals than he was 3 months ago. So he not only lost 3 months of time, he probably lost another 3 months on top of that. So he's now 6 months behind the 8 ball in terms of the time it's going to take for him to reach his health goals. And he's going to have to make up that lost time. Now Johnny's feeling his age, feeling his years. He's looking in the mirror. He's like got bags under his eyes. He's thinking, oh my God, what have I done? I wasted precious time going backwards, and now I'm going to have to make it back up. So listen, I've been there. I've been where Johnny is. I've done that. And I've been where Susie is, and I've done that. And sometimes I've been the hero, and I've been able to just stave off cravings and like push through it. That's more rare, and that takes time and years to get to that point. So look, momentum is precious, and that's the point of a cheat meal, is you want to avoid getting into that vicious cycle that Johnny did. And when you fall off the wagon hard and you just smash your face in the ground, you're eating junk food or fast food, you're dragging yourself through the mud. You're sabotaging your own success. So please don't learn about this the hard way. I went through it myself and figured this stuff out. So don't take half a decade or longer to fix yourself or achieve your health goals. You should be able to knock out whatever you're trying to do, depending on, obviously, your issues within a few years or less. So, okay, it's taken me a long time to find these things. I've tried them all personally at one point or another. Some of them I haven't eaten in years, but they did help me at one point. So I'm going to list out some of these foods that you can try. Now I'm going to link to them, and so you can either find the products themselves or maybe a recipe, at the link that I provide, and they're all going to be listed at rapidregeneration.com/cheat foods. Okay, and lastly, before the list, so cravings are universal for the most part, and people, that get into eating healthier, they tend to crave things that are in these same categories. So you're going to crave your fats, that fatty indulgence. How about the filling, the sumptuous texture of protein? How about salty foods? How about certain textures like breads or tortillas that we get from starch? Crunchy foods like chips and crackers. How about that creamy, rich dairy flavor? Or how about sweet, sugary, pastry type treats? So those are the types of things people generally crave. I know you crave those. And people, unfortunately, as they're in a healthy lifestyle and they're getting momentum, they reach for foods that have grains, like most breads, chips, crackers, tortillas, rice, pasta, starches, like your corn and your potatoes, beans, legumes, lentils, and soy, animal products, including conventional meat that is, full of GMO, hormones, toxins, and foods with a lot of chemicals and preservatives, and junk foods and processed foods, which are basically all made, using the above ingredients. So, and now we've covered ad nauseum in previous segments about why these foods are harmful. So the foods below will basically satisfy the same craving that you're getting, but without these harmful ingredients, without sending you on a downward spiral and creating even worse cravings for you several days later. So the goal is to you give in, you're like, all right, I can't resist it anymore. I'm going to have a cheat meal, but then you can get back on the train, and keep your momentum. Okay, so there's a few we're just going to barrel through. You got avocado and guacamole. Now this is an obvious one, okay? And so this is a good example of a normal person's healthy snack is a healthy person's cheat food. I mean, it's not even really a cheat food. I mean, avocados are healthy. The omega-6 to 3 ratio is not ideal. Of course, eating too much fats can be an issue. But have you ever had a craving where it's so insatiable, like you're craving a big burger, like a double burger, or just a big jumbo burrito? Well, if you eat 3 or 4 or 5 avocados or a giant serving of guacamole, yes, it's probably too much fat and there's probably some imbalance there, but your hunger will likely be completely satiated. And I've used this one over the years. This was a big go-to for me. When I would crave fat and protein, it's very hard to still crave something terrible for you after you eat several avocados, or you make a big dip with them. And there's other food products we're going to cover that you can eat with your avocado or guacamole, like tacos, tortillas, or like chips, and salsa and stuff like that. So this saved me so many times over the years. And if you're in a pinch, there are some products that are guacamole that don't have artificial preservatives. You can find them in the stores. You can get them online. Or if you need something travel friendly, you can also just cut an avocado in half and just eat it with a spoon right out of the rind. So rapidregeneration.com/guacamole. Okay, next up is olives. This is another high-fat fruit, right? If you're craving that fat. So you can put them in your guacamole and your salsa, put them in salads, wraps, or just enjoy them a la carte. You could enjoy the oil as well, virgin olive oil. Just keep in mind it's processed. It's not going to be as healthy for you. Yes, and if you're going to cook, by the way, if you're going to cook like vegetables or something, it's virgin olive oil is much better to eat raw than cooked, because it can denature at higher temperatures. The chemistry gets oxidized when you cook it. Very unhealthy. If you're absolutely going to cook using oil, it would be better to use coconut oil, which can tolerate higher temperatures more. Now, it is hard to find a good clean source of olives. Canned olives probably have BPA, and jarred olives are better, but even those, most all olives are preserved with vinegar, which is not really a great ingredient. Although, if you're transitioning or if you're going to have a cheat meal to avoid eating something worse, I don't really see that much wrong with eating olives from a jar, let's say, in vinegar. And you could also order olives not in vinegar. You'd have to order them special. They're still probably preserved with a lot of salt. I've yet to find, I live here in Central Texas, and even though there's olive farms around here, I've yet to find a source where you can get just pure olives direct. They just have the olive oils. So rapidregeneration.com/olives. Okay, next up is coconut meat, coconut oil, dried coconut products, and coconut chips. This is another one that's high in fat, right? There's a lot of benefits of this ingredient, although of course you can go overboard and eat too much. So now you can eat the meat. You can eat dried coconut flakes. There's some other products that I'll cover, like made from coconut, like coconut wraps. And then if you're craving a crunch, you can even get baked coconut chips. You can also eat coconut flour, which will thicken, whatever food you're eating. That's another one, coconut flour. I've eaten a lot of this over the years as well. It really takes the edge off in terms of hunger and craving. Yep, it's been a lifesaver. Okay, rapidregeneration.com/coconut. Okay, next up is nuts and seeds, nut and seed butters, and nut milks. Now, we talked about this in the role of nuts and seeds, right? These are very protein packed, filling. They can slay your craving if you're craving savory, fatty, kind of salty foods. There's so many varieties out there. Some of my favorites are walnuts, macadamia nuts. I like pecans. You can also, of course, drink the milks or the butters. You can try the butters. I used to love one of my go-to cheat meals back in the day. I'm sure you've tried this, but you get a banana with almond butter, and that's just amazing. And then maybe a glass of almond milk or coconut milk. Oh man. Remember that peanuts are not nuts. It's a legume, it's a bean. So don't cheat with peanuts. And you can buy quite a lot, you can save quite a lot of money and get more value, better ingredient, more product by ordering nuts online and seeds as opposed to going to the store. And try to get them raw, unroasted, unsalted, if possible. They're going to be healthier that way, full of enzymes. And rapidregeneration.com/nuts. Okay, next up is salsa and pico de gallo. So salsa, it's one of those magical entities. Now, later on, salsa can be a little bit of an issue. We're going to cover in an upcoming segment raw foods to consider avoiding. Some of the ingredients can be a little bit of an issue, but if you're transitioning, right, and so forth, or as a cheat food, don't worry so much about that. In the early days, I was consuming probably almost a full jar, 16 ounces of salsa daily, and I would make my own pico as well sometimes. This can be just a great way to experience the exciting, bold flavors of raw foods. And here was my cheat, which I would have a cheat meal, every day, at least once a day. Now, this was when I was first transitioning, but I would get a big bowl, like a big mixing bowl, and then cut up a few avocados, toss them in there, kind of smash them in there. Then I would get a 16-ounce jar of pitted black olives and kind of drain them out and chop them up, throw them in there. I might even throw in some pickle slices. Then I would also keep a big jar handy of salsa, and then I would pour salsa on top of it all. And then once this was all ready, I would get a big bag of corn chips. Okay, so now some people would say, well, that's an appetizer, or that's a side dish. Well, with the portion size that I was using, it was not an appetizer, it was a main dish. And so now this isn't an absolutely most healthy way of eating, of course, because of the corn chips. I regardless of that, I still felt great at the time I was doing it. And I was really transitioning from junk foods, and so it was right for me at the time. However, I wish that I had known about some of these other chips that I could have eaten instead, which I'm going to cover here coming up. But yeah, the salsa was a big help for me. Now salsa isn't also necessarily raw. A lot of the salsas are cooked. Try to get salsa, and cooked tomatoes are not exactly. I mean, they're very acid forming. Cooked tomatoes are. So, again, not exactly the healthiest, but it's a better alternative to other stuff out there. Try to get salsa, ideally without vinegar, and make sure that there's no added chemical preservatives. Okay, rapidregeneration.com/salsa. All right, next up is pickles and pickled vegetables. So this is like your fermented cucumbers that are put in salt and vinegar, or other fermented vegetables. Now, these are not what you would call health foods, right? They're the vinegar is very acidic and the excessive saltiness, but they're raw foods. They contain electrical energy, probiotics, nutrition, and they can satisfy your craving for something savory. So make sure to get products that don't contain extra chemical preservatives. I used to love pickles. I mean, I lost my taste eventually for fermented foods, but man, I loved pickles, just sliced pickles. I mean, it really adds a lot of flavor profile to a meal. Just be careful also that you're not satisfying some other appetite aside from your own. You know, fungal organisms like yeast, candida, funguses can really crave fermented foods. They love the sugar alcohol. And so make sure that you do a good parasite harmful organism cleanse. So make sure that, you know, you're not just feeding the masses when you're craving these fermented foods. So rapidregeneration.com/pickles, and of course /parasite cleanse. If you haven't done that, you're crazy. Okay, next is chips and crackers. Yes, why didn't someone help me and tell me where to go and how to find these products? When I was eating corn chips it took me, I think, 2.5 years to stop eating them. I mean, I can't get enough of that crunch, right? It's not always just about the taste. Sometimes it's the texture. And when you look at healthier foods, especially raw foods, it's a challenge to find that satisfying crunch. And you know that I loved things like salsas, guacamoles, dips, and it's just not the same when I didn't get the same satisfaction using a cucumber spear or a carrot stick or a lettuce leaf. So now, fortunately, when there's a problem, the free marketplace will invent a solution a lot of the time. So there's products that are out there that did not exist even a few years ago that still provide that crunch factor and that flavor, but don't contain all the grains, the beans, all the cooked oils, or the starches. So there are baked chips you can find, which don't contain these harmful ingredients, like that are made with almond flour instead. If you insist on eating a chip that's raw, I learned that you can make your own chips using a dehydrator and using zucchini slices. Now that's very time consuming, but if you're looking for a fun activity, to do with your kids or something. Now there's also chip products out there, or crackers, that are made using dried raw foods like beets or like flax seeds. And they're very tasty. And had I known about some of these products earlier, I have no doubt I would have accelerated my results quicker, transitioned quicker, and stopped eating so many corn chips. I mean, those really held me back and slowed me down for years. So rapidregeneration.com/chips. And I can't help myself from the past. I can't talk to Dave back in 2015, 2016, 2017. It's just not possible that I'm aware of to go back and alter time. But I can help you. So I hope that does. Okay, next up is wraps and tortillas. Eating salads over and over can get boring, or just plates of food. I mean, you might find yourself desiring that texture. I don't know why, but for some reason, it's a very desirable sensation when we wrap our food in an edible blanket and eat it like that. But the problem is that flour tortillas and wraps or corn tortillas, those contain grains and starches, and these are detrimental foods. Now, there are tortillas out there that are grain-free, but they are cooked, but they use, let's say, an almond flour. There is also a tortilla that is completely raw, that is just made from dehydrated coconut meat. Now, those I've used over the years with great pleasure. Or you can wrap your food up in a sheet of seaweed, which is aka nori. And so, now it can be a little bit addictive, like the coconut wraps. I love those things, but they are addictive. And, you might eat dinner with them, but then the next day, you crave them again. And so a lot of the food cravings are mental, and so at a certain point, it helps to have the mindset where you do just give up certain textures. Like I eventually just gave up the crunch of corn chips and said, all right, I'm just going to try to figure out how to live life without crunch. I think a good approach is, you can still enjoy the texture of a tortilla or a wrap sometimes, but maybe you don't necessarily need to experience that with every single savory meal. Okay, rapidregeneration.com/tortillas. Okay, next up is noodles. So for any Italian food lovers, I'm sorry, because eating healthier is not easy, and there's nothing like freshly made pasta, but it is very unhealthy food. So you can buy a tool that will spiralize zucchinis or other vegetables into the shape of pasta. You can also, one of my mom's old recipes, you can bake a summer squash in the oven, and you can fork it out the contents, which creates kind of a pasta texture. Now, it doesn't come close really to the satiation you get from floury, starchy pasta, but it gets the palate of the dish in the same ballpark. It tends to taste better cooked than raw, although either way works. You can also purchase kelp noodles. Now, this is noodles made from a sea vegetable, and use that to make your very own light, healthy Italian dish. So, the difference between eating pasta from grains and pasta from vegetables is you have a meal, and after the meal, you feel a zillion times lighter, more energetic, and healthier. And you don't have a need for that after dinner cappuccino when you have all this natural dynamic energy. So you can go to rapidregeneration.com/spiralizer if you want to make your own, or /noodles. Okay, next up is hummus, dips, and dressings. So hummus, it's a favorite snack of the plant-based food world and community, but I know by now that beans, lentils, and legumes are not health foods. They create acidic chemistry, enzyme inhibition. They have a lot of problems. And the same thing with dips and dressings are a lot of times packed with dairy or processed ingredients or harmful chemicals or vinegars. So there are hummuses that you can make without beans There's a hummus I tried once. It's a sunflower seed hummus that was sold in stores. You can also make your own hummus or dips or dressings using other ingredients. I have friends that make like a raw hummus with garbanzo beans that are soaked. Now again, I still find this unhealthy, very difficult for the body to digest. You can make a hummus using zucchini. A friend of mine showed me a raw hummus, which is ripe zucchini, lemon juice, spices, and a nut or seed of your choice, like in this case tahini or pecans, and it makes almost the same consistency. Very rich. Same thing with dressings you can make. So yes, if you're craving that dip or that hummus or that dressing, there's a lot of recipes online and products, that you can try, which are going to be better than the alternative. So rapidregeneration.com/hummus/dip or /dressing. So okay, next up is, I think we're almost done here. Okay, steamed vegetables. So cooked vegetables is one of the least bad things you could eat. Because it's cooked, it's still going to be mildly acid forming. It will be stripped of some of its nutrition, its probiotics, and electrical energy. But it's not, on the whole, it's not bad compared with all the cooked foods out there. Now, if you're looking at sauteing with oil or roasting in the oven or other ways of heating, steaming is going to be your healthiest way to cook vegetables. Preserves the most ingredients and avoids adding heated oils. And don't underestimate how sumptuous and filling this food can be. The key to this is big portions, because vegetables are low in sugar, high in fiber, and calories are lower, less dense. So be generous on the portion sizes and just try it for yourself. Make a big bowl of broccoli and carrots. You can serve this along a homemade hummus or dip in a wrap, or perhaps with some broccoli rice or cauliflower rice, which are those vegetables cut up in the shape of rice granules. Now you can go overboard with this. Some cheat meals are raw. Some of these cheat foods are raw. Some of them are cooked. If I eat cooked dinner, I will feel it the next day. The next morning I'll have less energy. So, just if you're feeling ratted out and you're going to eat something cooked, yeah, sure, go for it. Steamed vegetables, it's a cheat meal. We're not looking for perfection, but just don't use cheat meals as an excuse. Don't get into a cycle where every day, or all the time, you're just eating foods for comfort and puts you in a rut, because it can hold you back. I've seen it happen with a lot of individuals. So just keep that in mind. Also, you want to avoid cooking in iron, copper, or nonstick pans, cookware. I use a stainless steel steamer. It cooks food in the cleanest possible way, and avoids contaminating it with metals. So you can find that at rapidregeneration.com/steamer and /pan. Okay, just a couple left. I know this is a long list. So freeze-dried peas. This is a weird one, but oddly satisfying. They're very crunchy because these are freeze-dried and they're basically dehydrated peas. Peas are very flavorful, so it's very crunchy and flavorful. It's tough to find a raw food that's crunchy. So you can make a wrap, with some guacamole, put some peas in there. It's very crunching. Crunchy, it sounds strange. Personally, it's just so delicious to me. Now, it's not great food combining, and the pea, it can be a little bit of addictive. It's not exactly a health food. The pea is kind of bordering on being a legume family. It's higher in protein. It's more complex digestion. It's dehydrating, so it can be, a little bit dehydrating. But yeah, if you're craving a crunch and kind of a protein, it is very satisfying. Yes, so rapidregeneration.com/peas. Okay, next is nut cheeses. If you're having a hard time giving up cheese, yes, this does your body a big favor. A very chefy, explosions of flavor. It's not the healthiest of health foods, but it's a zillion times better than dairy, and it can satisfy your fix, without you falling off the wagon and eating one of the worst foods that's out there, which is dairy. rapidregeneration.com/nut cheese. Okay, and how about vegan ice cream? Okay, there's 2 categories left, the sweet categories. If you have a sweet tooth, hey, don't think I forgot about you. I wouldn't do that, okay? I know after years of your life eating stuff made with flour, butter, chocolate, added sugar, that you're jonesing for a fix. Now vegan ice cream is like regular ice cream, but virtually guilt-free. Make sure to check the label for ingredients. Make sure it doesn't contain harmful fillers. A lot of natural ones just contain very simple ingredients like coconut, natural sweeteners, and other sweet flavors mixed together. So it's not ideal food combining, but it is delicious. It will hit the spot, and it will not leave you with that heavy feeling like regular ice cream. You can also make your own nice cream using bananas, other fruits, smash them up and put them in the freezer. So rapidregeneration.com/ice cream. Okay, lastly, raw pastries, right? This is if your guilty pleasure is the sweets. So, we've been preyed on by the food industry and these corporations that have put all this addictive ingredients into foods and basically gotten us hooked on this stuff. So please don't give in to eating those garbage products, those junk foods that contain all this stuff. So there's so many amazing raw pastries, including cookies, cakes, pies, crumbles and tarts and cheesecakes. It's so many creations, that use healthier ingredients like coconut, flaxseed, almond flour, nuts, dates, date sugar, honey, or agave nectar. Some of these ingredients are raw. Some of them are raw-ish or not raw, but maybe they're not the healthiest of ingredients, but they can play the role. And this is for the time when you're absolutely can't be stopped and fulfilling your craving. You become a fiend for sugary sweets. Now there's also cooked pastries that don't contain grains and added sugars, unnatural sugars, but don't go for the cooked pastries. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it, but just pastries are one of the least healthy things you could eat. They're very calorically dense, rich, fattening, processed a lot of times, and inherently have bad food combining. So these are difficult to digest, and can really hold somebody back from alkalizing and detoxing themselves. So if you're going to eat a pastry, please, try to eat a raw one. It'd be better to, it would be much, much better than a cooked one, And so there's so many amazing recipes out there and that you can make at home and products available for sale. The creativity is really amazing. And this has really gotten better in recent years. Okay, so that's it. That's all the foods to cheat with. And just remember, foods not to cheat with, okay? I know you're going to be tempted by these other foods, Okay, I can't list out, every situation. Just please don't cheat with the stuff that people so often cheat with, like French fries, fried foods, potatoes, breads, tortillas, pasta, rice, potatoes, okay, chips and crackers made from grains, potatoes, or corn, pizza, okay, even if it's vegan pizza, don't do it unless maybe you can use a cauliflower crust. All right, that's different. There's even raw pizza you can make. Okay, a lot of the soy products and the soy fake meat, man, be careful with that. It's very hard actually to find a veggie burger that is not made with grains, beans, or harmful chemicals and preservatives. Okay, if you find one, let me know. Please send it to me on social media. Okay, your cookies, pastries, cakes, candies, soft drinks, and beer. All right, I know you want them, but I'm just saying, I can't list out every category you're going to come across. Just please use your common sense. Use the cheat foods in this section and see how much better you feel and how quicker your recovery time is and how much more momentum you're maintaining to reach your goals. Now, if you've already reached your goals and you're perfectly healthy and you just want to have some fun, no problem. Eat whatever you want. But if you're trying to close the gap between you and your health goals, then please don't cheat with these terrible foods that are going to harm you. Cheat with these other foods that are going to still satisfy that craving and aren't nearly as bad. And just see the difference there. I really wish I had this information going back to when I was trying to get healthy and well. So my last message to you is don't use this as an excuse. Okay, don't make me regret sharing these comfort foods for you. These foods can be used as a hack, but don't fall into the cycle of just eating vegan junk food or raw junk food all the time. Remember that, these are, it's your other foods that are alkalizing and detoxing, your fresh ripe fruit, your herbs, vegetables, nuts and seeds, and cheat foods are just a detour from that. And I've seen so many people plateau because even for years or decades, they're eating healthy foods, they're avoiding grains and beans, a lot of raw foods, but they're still eating frequently a lot of these kind of junk foods. And so that's fine if you're perfectly healthy, absolutely fine. But if you're trying to solve a problem, then go all the way. I mean, push through. There's going to be a time when you'll need to use your willpower and say no, deny the craving the ability to take over. And so when that time comes, just know God's going to help you. You're going to be filled with the power to actually do it. But I know sometimes you have to take one step backwards to take another 3 steps forwards. You have to do a cheat meal. So use this information wisely. Once again, all of these items can be found at rapidregeneration.com/cheat foods. So I hope this is helpful, and almost done with the food information. So these are going to be arrows in your quiver. It's going to be tools that you can use to accomplish your health goals. So stay tuned for the last couple segments, and good luck.
For more information, please follow at Rapid Regeneration or visit rapidregeneration.com.